Phoenix Rise podcast. Claire here. And this is where we talk all things business, spirituality, and mindset. We have no one world or the other. We combine everything because you get to have the best of both worlds. Tonight, we have got my very first ever podcast guest on the show. So I've guested on lots of podcasts, but I've never had anyone on my podcast. So I'm really excited to introduce Madison to you and to have a really off the cuff chat about business. Like, we're just going to free flow this. We're going to see where the conversation takes us. So come along and join us for the ride. I'm sure there's going to be lots of juiciness in this conversation. And Madison, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Madison. I am a multi-passionate business and marketing mentor, strategist, and coach. I'm so excited to be on. I've been in business. This is my 5th year in business. Yeah, about 5 years in business. Started out as done-for-you service provider, transitioned to strategist, transitioned to coach, and I also own Soulful Scrunchies, which is my e-commerce shop. I run retreats under Soulful Select Retreats, and I am also a volleyball coach as well. So I juggle lots of things and I have very much fun doing it. So
I love that. Lots of fingers and lots of pies.
Yes, that's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
100%. I'm so with you. And do you know what? What I would really love us to start this conversation with is, I think, being put in a box, right? And I think this is such a trap that anyone starting as an entrepreneur falls into, and through no fault of our own, because we get told that, niche down and focus on this and, hone your marketing, make sure you know who you're talking to and all of this stuff. And I think for people like me, and probably like yourself as well, it can feel really restrictive and it can feel really confining. And you get to the point where you feel like you're not even free in your own business, and it's like, why am I suddenly feeling trapped when I should be feeling freer than ever? Would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, I think some people have success being very specific and niching down, but I think it hurts people who are more multi-passionate and more multifaceted, because I think what has happened in the space that we're in and with the stigma is, I feel like society, from being little to growing up, we've learned like, hey, go to college, get the job, stay at the job, get promoted, retire, right? That's just kind of society's norms, especially growing up. Now things have changed a bit, right? And I think people are trying to navigate that change of what that looks like. But us multi-passionates, we already know how to navigate that, right? We've been on top of it for a while. And I think that the space that we're in, it feels safe being niche and sticking to one thing. But what happens when I see this with clients is they'll come to me and they'll be like, I feel so restricted. I feel like I can't talk about other things. I feel like I can't infuse other parts of me. I feel like I can't, finally break out and talk about my other passions, start a new business, because I was told not to. Mm-hmm. And I think that the people who told them not to do it don't know how to run a multi-passionate brand at the end of the day. They don't know what it takes and what it's like to actually infuse multiple things. And I think people are realizing, I want to grow a personal brand. I want to break out of the box. I want to grow a business that allows multiple parts of me to be infused in my brand too, and have that free range and have that freedom. And I think that more people are starting to kind of realize that in a way, which makes me really excited, but we're still kind of in that weird, rocky, awkward time where you're seeing a lot of should you niche down, should you not type talk, when in reality, your niche is just the problem you solve in your business. That's literally it. And it could be like, I help you, get over your fear of running a marathon. Like, that's just a niche. Your niche is not very specific. It doesn't have to be this whole extravagant one thing, but you are the one that helps them solve the problem. You are the one that provides the perspectives. You are the one that helps people. So you are part of your niche too. So in my opinion, technically, you can be your niche. You are part of that movement. You are part of that change, and you are part of that problem solving technique that you have for your business. I just think people restricted themselves from being in such a small niche and thinking that's the only way to make money or have an impact. When in reality, your audience actually wants to see all parts of you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like, you are the brand and your niche can change under you, can't it? You can have different businesses that are different niches, but you are the brand, because obviously people buy from people. We know this, sales psychology. So
Yeah.
your niche can change. It's you that is
Yes.
the magnet, that is the kind of the drawing factor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always look at examples like Gary Vee or Jasmine Star or like Cody Sanchez I follow. Like they talk, them for like business or whatever they're known for, their brand, social media, the problem they solve, but they infuse so much more into their brand. They talk about other things, they share new perspectives, they do so many different things, and they're their brand, right? And I think that's where people kind of they're so caught up in creating around the business, they forget that they're the brand too. And they forget to build awareness around themselves. And I think that's fun to me. Like that's when it becomes a blast to create an online brand.
I love that. And I remember when I started my very first business, so this is showing my age now, about 10 years ago, and I started in the corporate sector. And I remember thinking about like logos and that kind of stuff, right? And so my first business is very boring field, right? It's in the energy sector, but now I'm spiritual. People are like, oh, and you're like, no, not that kind of energy. You're like the boring kind. But when I was thinking of like the brand, right, and my logos and my colors and all this stuff, I remember specifically at the time thinking, I want to build like a virgin. I want it to be, I don't want it to say what it does, because I want to be open to diversifying, to adding different things on if I want to at some point. Whereas, if you called yourself, I don't know, ABC Energy, that's very much, you're boxed in with that name. And I remember specifically being in that frame of mind where I didn't want to box it in. I wanted to leave it open. But I guess what would be good to explore here is, do you find that most of your clients start knowing that they want multiple options, or do they come to you later on where they feel boxed in and they're like, oh sugar, like like what do I do? I've kind of built myself this invisible cage here, right?
Yeah. So most of my clients come to me where they've already felt boxed in. They felt restricted. They've been in business a little bit. So they're either in the circumstance where they felt really boxed in, they're looking to get out of the box, or they're kind of going through that pivot, that kind of evolvement with their brand, and they're unsure of how to navigate that gray area. Now, I will have new clients who are like brand new to business come to me, maybe in my membership or in an intensive, and they still want to be known for their expertise, but they want to know how to actually infuse multiple interests and passions and hobbies into their brand too. Like they want to learn the personal brand and brand aspect of things. But a lot of more, like a general amount of like 75% of my clients will be kind of coming to me in more of a restricted area, or in a pivot, or currently like managing multiple things and needing help with kind of the managing side and the scaling side of things. But to me, it's just a really fun time. I'm actually working with a client now on, she does paranormal, like has a paranormal podcast, but is also a business coach, and it's under one Instagram. And I know she came to me, she was like, I feel like my life would be a lot easier if I niched down. And I was like, or let me provide a new perspective. What if you can generate and you can infuse both of those passions and businesses under one brand message, under one cohesive message that falls under you? And then it will be easier to intertwine them. And I think that's where people go wrong. They think everything needs to be separated, but usually everything falls under you at the end of the day. And people are more entertained by seeing multiple sides of you as well.
That's really interesting. So what would you suggest to someone maybe who, and I'm probably more of a rare breed, but I'll take me as an example because,
Oh,
you know, I'm the one talking. So what about, for instance, then people like me who have different businesses in very different sectors? How would you look at that? So my route is I they happened organically. So I kind of built one business, and then I got bored, and then I would build a next, and then I got bored, and then I would build a next. And now I have, at the moment, I have 3 businesses, and they all pretty much run themselves. And I am now embarking on my journey as stepping into a speaker. That's like my next thing. That's what I really feel called to do. So I kind of got the businesses up and running, but they're all very separate to each other. And my main brand, if you like, my personal brand is on my Phoenix Instagram. So that's
yeah.
like where I'll talk about my personal journey and obviously my coaching and that kind of stuff as well. But I don't really talk about any of my other businesses. People know I have other businesses, and I talk about being, you know, a serial entrepreneur, but I don't really get into the nitty gritty of them because the audience probably,
Yeah.
you know, the right audience. So how would you approach something like that?
Yeah, I feel like you're in a really great circumstance because you're growing a personal brand and you want to speak. And I
Mm.
would just picture your other businesses as documentation and sharing wisdom. I think that you can infuse your other businesses into your personal brand by sharing experiences and wisdom that you've learned from those businesses. So kind of taking like maybe 40% or 30% or 40% of your content is telling your audience, you know, what you've learned from being a serial entrepreneur, like why you started your first business, what was the process of starting a second business, and figuring out what you wanted to do with your first. I would use your experiences with running multiple businesses as content under your personal brand and what you can speak on. Like, I think that's a really great way to infuse storytelling, to share wisdom, to document and allow your audience. They're like, hey, she's a serial entrepreneur, but I don't really know, like, what does she learn from these businesses? Like, what are the businesses? Does she have any negative experiences, challenges, and like great experiences? I kind of look at, if I'm looking at someone who's doing that, that's what I would want to know. So
Mm.
that's how I would infuse those businesses and share them occasionally under your personal brand. And I feel like if I wanted you to, like, if I was at a conference, if I like owned a conference and I wanted you to speak at it, I would be like, okay, she's a serial entrepreneur. That's great. But it's more than just that. It's her experiences, her lessons learned, her challenges that she infuses into her brand and talks about with her multiple businesses. So
Yeah,
like
I love that.
a great way to do that is like storytelling through reels, or being able to like show behind the scenes of you working on these businesses, or like telling stories on your Instagram stories or TikTok about it. Like, I think it's just really sharing that wisdom that you have.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's definitely something that I try and encompass into my marketing and my branding. And hopefully that will resonate with some of our listeners
Yeah.
as well. Tell us a little bit about your story. So what led you to becoming an entrepreneur, and kind of talk to me about, yeah, your journey.
Yeah, so I got my master's in sports business. So I wanted to work in sports all of my life, basically. I kind of grew up wanting to do the one thing. That's what I want to do. I grew up wanting to do the one thing, pursuing that one job, that one dream job. And I was very close to getting that dream job. And I ended up not getting it. So I think it really crushed me internally of like working so hard. So I graduated with my master's and I needed money to live. I was living in a big city and I was like, I gotta make some money to like pay rent, live here. So I ended up getting a part-time job. It was in social media management, website design, ads. I was kind of doing all the things. And I ended up loving it. I was like, this is really fun. And I'm actually surprisingly good at this. This was like way before like TikTok,
Yeah,
Instagram
yeah,
Reels. It's like where Instagram was just a photo sharing. That
yeah,
was it.
yeah.
It's just a photo
Remember that
sharing.
day?
And it was great. And so she loved my work so much, who I worked for, she referred me to other clients. So I kind of started picking up little clients on the side. And I was like, wow, this is like something that I could do. Let me kind of jump in and go all in while still looking for a full-time job.
Wow.
Never got a full-time job, never ended up getting one, went all in on the entrepreneur journey. And then I started building my brand online to get consulting clients. I really just wanted to stay locally. I was in Dallas, Texas, and wanted to get consulting clients. And then I was kind of introduced to the online world of like consultants, coaches, and I jumped in to do more consulting over anything. So I did consulting for like a year and a half before diving into just coaching and strategizing. And in 2020, that's when I started my e-commerce business, Soulful Scrunchies. So I wasn't even like full 2 years in of my business yet. And I started Soulful Scrunchies. So many people were like, are you sure that's a good idea? What did you say?
What led you to that point? So you were kind of doing the things and then you started another business. What happened there?
I just started kind of getting bored.
Yeah.
I was like, and I had a passion for scrunchies. I was known as like the scrunchy girl online because
Yeah.
all I did was wear my hair up in scrunchies. And I was like, I would be really good at starting a scrunchie business because I feel like I could take my branding, take the vibe, and like really make it successful. And I was like, I'm just gonna do it because I did want to do it for a while. I remember I made a post in like the end of 2019. This was like 6 months into my full-time business journey. And it was like, I can't wait till next year. I'm going to start Soulful Scrunchies. Like I'm going to start this e-commerce business. It's going to be great. Ended up doing it at the end of 2020. And I was just bored and unfulfilled. And I'm so glad I started the second business because it actually taught me more about my coaching business. It taught me how I wanted my business to look, the structure. It taught me my lifestyle that I wanted because I was working so much in my coaching business, like 10-hour days on one business, just way too much in like places that I shouldn't be putting all of my time and energy. So it taught me how to like be organized and maintain a really great schedule for myself and started it. And I've been having it ever since, still doing Soulful Scrunchies. And then got bored again in 2021 and I was running retreats with my coaching business and my mastermind and was like, I really want to run these like retreats and turn them into events one day. So in 2021 I started Soulful Select Retreats, and I ran 3 retreats in an 8-month time period. Don't suggest anyone do that because I feel like I'm still tired from doing that. But it kind of fulfilled, and I realized I was fulfilling different passions, my passion for like coaching and strategizing and teaching, my passion for like community, my passion for creativity. And I was just kind of fulfilling passions within my businesses. And that's kind of realized, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm multi-passionate. So that's kind of when I took the reins of being multi-passionate in the end of 2021. And that's when I kind of pivoted my messaging and spoke more towards multi-passions.
I love that. It's really it's kind of there's real polarities between your story and my story. And the big difference that actually made me chuckle is so you started thinking that you were going to follow like this career ladder that was already planned out. Everything was kind of set out in stone for you. Mine was kind of the opposite. So I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. Like at school, I was always the one in detention because I just hated people telling me what to do. I was just like, I was not cut out for being like, again, confined, restricted, like feeling like I couldn't be me. So I always knew that I wanted my own business, but I never knew what I wanted to do. So kind of the opposite of you. But I knew I wanted to be my own boss. So I left school as soon as I could. I was out of there at 16 and I was just like, just get me in the real world. Like I need to just like find my path. And then I ended up a little similarly to you, like falling into a job that I thought would just be a stopgap until I figured out what I was going to do as my business. I ended up staying there for like 5 years. It wasn't for me. So I talk about purpose a lot, and it wasn't like a purpose and it didn't light me up, but I was good at it. And it was kind of easy, it was like I got into the swing of it. I built a reputation for myself, and it was kind of like a ready-made meal in front of me. And at some point, like about 5 years in, someone actually said to me, you should do this, because I was always still having business ideas, and it never, it was like couldn't see the wood through the trees. Like it would never even cross my mind. And being a generator, I was like, oh, okay, give me something to respond to there. And then I was like, yeah, I should. And then straight away, as soon as someone said that, within a week, I was like handed in my notice, started on the website, like started on the branding, started like putting the feelers out for clients. And within 3 months, I was like up, bang, had my first business ready. And then the rest just kind of happened, and life just kind of takes over and you just kind of fall into it, don't you? But I
Yeah.
think what I would love us to touch on is, you mentioned multi-passionate, which is obviously something that you are passionate about, and that's what you talk about a lot. And I talk about purpose a lot.
Yeah.
And I think people might get this confused. They might think, what is, they're kind of opposites here. How do you have one purpose but you have multi passions? And I would love us to touch on that. And I'll just give my view on it, is that I believe your purpose is always evolving, and it's always changing as you change, because as you grow, you jump into different timelines, and every timeline that you jump in is a different level of purpose that you can bring into the world. And it doesn't mean that you're restricted to one thing. Like, you can have a purpose of, maybe just an example, like empowering women. Like for me, that's what I class as my purpose. So empowering as many women as I can to be whoever the hell they want to be, like without apology, like just live your best life and do it unapologetically. Like that for me is a passion and it's a purpose.
Yep.
But I can still do other things, because I still have creativity that I want to channel. I can still do other things whilst following my purpose, and I think this would be a great thing just to kind of hash out a little bit and have your opinion on.
Yeah, so my opinion is, you don't find your purpose, you create your purpose. I've always said that. So I think that you never find, like, I would never be like, I'm going to find my purpose. Like, I think we create our purpose the more that we're curious and the more that we just evolve. I think there's never, like, I'm not going to be on my deathbed and be like, this was my purpose in life, because like I would have multiple purposes, right? As I create and as I keep going and I keep evolving. I think people try to, like, they're like sitting down like, what's my purpose? But in reality, like, the moves that you make, being curious and like really moving forward with your zone of genius and the skills that you have now will help you create your purpose, and your purpose will change as you evolve. That's really what I've always believed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that, and I always say this, I always say that I never, in business or my brand at all, I don't expect outcomes. I don't even like, I don't even like really set goals. Like, I don't set outcomes, because I know that the one path I take is going to lead me to a completely different path. I just know it, or a completely different outcome that I may have. So that's why I always say, like, we create our purpose at the end of the day, right? It's not like, my purpose could be like, I know that for the past 5 years, I've, really tapped into this one purpose that I've loved, that I've created for myself, but I'm moving into a new purpose that's part of my passion, part of my brand, and I'm creating a new one for myself. That's kind of my viewpoint on it. It's very
I love
similar
that.
to yours of like evolving, you
Yeah,
just
exactly.
change things up and evolve and have multiple things, passions and purposes.
Exactly. And I think, it's that whole point of, if you stayed the same, and, so many of us stay the same, we don't grow, we get kind of all consumed by the fear, and we just, we prevent ourselves from ever really fulfilling our potential, of who we really could be in this world. And I think if you're in that, and if you stay in that place of where you've always been and where you always stay, then your
Yeah.
purpose will always stay the same. And that purpose is to grow, it is to evolve, it is to find who you're here to be and how much you can give back to the world, and it's like, the more we grow, the more we're able to give back, as well as fulfilling ourselves. It's not about it's not about having one or the other. It's not about like, well, you can't have money and be spiritual. That's like a big thing in my world. You know, it's about
Yeah.
being able to have it all, because, you know, everyone's worthy of having whatever they want. You know, it's not like a, you have more means someone else has less. It's just
Yeah.
about allowing yourself to grow so that you can tap into those purposes that you're capable of in each almost
Yeah.
quantum leap, if you like, you know, level of growth.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think that like, and I've noticed as, you know, we evolve or as we mature or as we grow, like as a human, like things just shift in our business and brand too. Like I just noticed that. And like, you know, beliefs that I've had a long time ago, I don't have anymore. Or like
Yeah.
things that I want to do a long time ago, I don't want to do anymore. Like I think just as we grow, and I think we just kind of find our footing. I always say like entrepreneurship, you're just constantly testing. Like you're constantly just putting one foot in front of the other and
Failing
like
forward, right?
yeah, and like playing around, seeing what works, what doesn't. But like you never know until you try type mentality, I think is very important. But I think that, yeah, going back to the purpose thing, I think it's created through evolvement and through trying and through feeling it out and through your intuition and through actually moving forward. And I think the answers are found more the more you try and be curious and test things.
I think that's actually a really interesting point, and something that I actually spoke to one of my clients about today. And it was the whole, so she's a new entrepreneur, so she's not been an entrepreneur before, and she's wanting to step into the world. And she has this massive fear of judgment, right? Of people around her judging her, and people being like, oh, like you're really gonna do it, you know, like that kind of, and we all get that, you know, especially
Yeah.
when we first start out. And what I said to her is, every entrepreneur, their first business starts out not knowing what the fuck they're doing. Like, none of us know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur is about failing over and over and over again. Well, you know, failing, you can't really fail. The only failure is not trying, right? But you
Right.
know, it's just that the expectation that you have on the outcome, that's really what we're testing here. And it's, if you don't achieve that, you get up and you try something else, and you know that it's a lesson, you know that it's pivoting you to a different projection, it's maybe moving your path slightly, it's showing you something that you didn't see before. You know, every lesson, every failure, if you want to call it that, is always just something to be learned to push you forwards. And I think
Yes.
that's something that, you know, anyone starting out in the entrepreneurial world just needs to really understand. It's part of the package, right? It's
It is. Yeah. You have to try, you have to fail. Like the amount of times that I've just been like, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Like it's just, but it's like there's always something on the other side that makes it worthwhile, in my opinion. And I just find it more fun. Like I'd rather try new things, do something else, test new things than just stick to one thing and be bored. And like
yeah.
I feel like when you're bored, that's when things start to not work for you and you get unfulfilled and you don't feel inspired anymore. And it's like, what can you just try to do like little by little to like, you know, create more fulfillment and enjoyment in what you're doing? It might not work, but it may, you never know. Like you don't know. Like it's one of those things I saw this TikTok and it was like talking about how, you know, you have to become the person that you want to become now. Like really
Yeah.
tomorrow doesn't exist in time. Like time is so like time doesn't really exist. Like there's only today. So I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, we always think so much about the future, if this will work, if this outcome will work, when in reality, like all we have is today. So it's like, what can you do? How can you not lose out on opportunities? Just like trying, because tomorrow is another today at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, so as long as you just like try, be curious and test, like that's the fun in business and life and your brand.
Exactly, because, and this, yeah, this is exactly what I was saying to her today. I love this conversation, and it's about, it's not about the end result, right? It's about who you're becoming
Right.
in the
Yeah.
journey. And every time you have those lessons, every time you have those, you know, failures or whatever, the expectation that didn't happen how you wanted it to happen, it's like you've learned something that has made you grow. You've learned something that has actually, well, one, it's built different neurons in your whole brain anyway. So like you've literally created a different brain through that process, and you've become someone else, because every time you have an experience like that, you become another version of you. And the whole fun, I think fun is it's a big word that I think a lot of entrepreneurs lose sight of, because we get so bogged down in the hustle, the grind, the burnout, right? And it's you end up working more than you ever worked for someone else, and it's you kind of feel like you should be achieving something, but all you actually do is work, and you never even have any time to reap the rewards of what you're sowing anyway. And I think fun is such a massive thing that so many people miss out on, because they don't realize that if they actually tap into what lights them up, that is where they're going to get their best results anyway. That's where they're going to feel the most fulfilled. It's where they're going to magnetize the people that are meant for them. But you have to allow yourself that time and that space and that freedom to enjoy yourself, because that's the fun of the journey, having fun.
I know. That's so funny you said that, because I was talking to one of my friends, and we were talking about how when I entered the online space in 2019 and I met her, like everything was really fun. Like people were having fun, like it was like, carefree in a way. And now it's like no one has fun. Like everyone's like, I want to create a boring business. If you want a boring business, go buy a car wash. I don't know. Like this is not a boring, like go buy a vending machine. I don't know. But that's boring business and can make you money, but isn't social media, isn't running a brand, having offers, impacting people like fun? It's fun. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. And I think a lot of people miss that mark. And I know a lot of people are not having fun in their business. And I think I do agree. The more fun you have, the more you tap into something like unique and powerful, and the better results you're going to get. And I feel like the fun has to always come within. Like it always has to be from a bigger why, has to come within. It can't just always be, external in a way.
Yeah, 100%. And it can just be simple things, right? Like, so for me, I spent 8 years in the grind, the hustle, the burnout. Like I was literally so focused on achieving success that I missed out on my life. It's like, you're bringing in money, but did you go and see your kids' school play? Did you, go and do parenting? Like you're literally missing your life. And it's always in the chase of generally something untangible, success. What does it even look like? It's something that is kind of like you're never going to achieve it because you haven't even built a clear picture of what it is anyway. But once I kind of transitioned, if you like, I had my spiritual awakening, and I kind of transitioned to what I call a soulpreneur, and I started really embodying who I wanted to be and the kind of business owner that I wanted to be, because I didn't identify with entrepreneur anymore. I was like, that to me is like hard work. I don't want to do hard work anymore. I've slogged for long enough. I'm done with that. I just want to have fun, freedom, and fulfillment. Like my top 3 things, that's what I want in my life, and I'm good. And it's like, we got home today. All I had to do today was I had a one-to-one client, done a little bit of stuff for a speaking keynote speech that I've got this morning. Rest of the day was free other than our podcast. So I was like, okay, so I went and had a sauna, went to the gym, had a jacuzzi, did some meditation. And then we got home from school. It was raining, and my kids just ran outside and started jumping on the trampoline. They were like, Mum, come out. And part of the old me, so straight away I was like, no. And then I kind of looked at them, and I looked at like their faces, and I was like, I want some of that. I just ran outside and like jumped around on this trampoline in the pouring rain, because why not? Right? But I think we can get so trapped in this identity of always needing to work, work, work. That's the only way we're ever going to achieve success. I haven't got time for that. I can't let my hair down. I haven't got time. And so, I'm so busy, busy, busy. And it's like, busy doing what? Busy doing what? Like, all I would have been doing is sitting there with a cup of tea, watching them have fun instead of actually enabling myself to have fun. Do you find do you find a lot of your clients are in that trap of like just grind?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that my clients definitely. And I think that, and I always have this saying that, business shouldn't fulfill you. Like, business isn't the thing that fulfills you, it's your life. So like, one of your best activities you can do is just go live your life. Like, go have fun. Because I do think we get caught up, as you said, in like the external success factor and like the money, the status, whatever that people define success. A lot of it is money, status, the number of clients and programs, but all of that is not going to make you fulfilled. It's not going to make you happy at the end of the day. It's, what are you doing with your life? How are you living? Are you having fun? And I always say, the more fun you have in your life, the more present you can be, the more fun your business is, the more exciting it is, the more it's not like, I watched this TikTok, her name's simplifying.sam, and I talked about this on my stories. Her TikTok's great. She's like a manifestation coach person. And she was like, it's like we're trying to chase after the goalpost, but the closer we get to it, seems like the farther away we get to it. And it feels like the closer we reach the external success, we take a step back, because at the end of the day, the goalpost is just a mental fantasy. It's not really there. We have to be the goalpost, because tomorrow doesn't exist. Like, today is what exists. And it's just things like that to realize, like, what are you doing? How are you living? Like, it's not a competition. It's not a rat race. It's not a success race. It's, time is going by. How are you having fun and living your life? Like, that's what matters at the end of the day. Business, your job and stuff can come second, in my opinion.
100%. And I think it's about creating, kind of back to the multi-passionate, it's about creating something that gives you the kind of life you want. And I think so many of us, especially when we start out, because we don't know any better, we just kind of jump in and we just end up kind of being swept along with the current without ever really being able to stop and look around and take stock, right? We're just like zoom and we don't get a chance, a breather. And I think so many of us just fall into that and we just forget why we did it in the first place. And it's like, you're constantly chasing the money. We all chase money. That's part of, especially entrepreneurs, we're the worst. Like, we're always chasing money. And I am a lover of money. I love money. Money is like such a gift for us, and it's such a tool for us in our businesses, but also in our lives. Of course, it allows us to experience amazing things, and we should all have abundance of money, because it's just energy at the end of the day. Why shouldn't we have it? But when we're chasing it, there's this analogy that I absolutely love from my coach, and she's like, if you're constantly chasing something, think about when you're on the playground at school and there's this kid and he's running towards you. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to run away. Like, you're just going to be like, back off, like, you're going to bolt into me. Like, if you're chasing something, you're just pushing it further and further away. And I think the art of consciously creating business or businesses that really light you up gives you the life that you really truly desire. And when you're living the life that you truly desire, the money will just come anyway, because you'll be attracting it, because you'll be in your highest vibration, and it will just flow through almost through the gates that you've set up, right? Through the portals that you've placed in your businesses, because it's an exchange. You're giving impact and you're getting exchange back, but you have to be open to receive it. And the only way to be open to receive it is to be in your highest frequency. And that is by having fun, living your best life, like not being like, oh, I gotta get this email out, I've got to make this content, I've got to do this real
I agree. I completely agree. I know I was like sitting here for our podcast. I was like, I need to create a post because I'm doing a series where this week I'm like speaking my truth. I don't know if you
That's
saw
yeah.
it. And today it's just not coming to me. And I was like trying to force it before the call. I said, F it, whatever. Like maybe it'll come to me later or maybe tonight when I'm laying in bed. Like, it's just one of those things like it's so easy to get into like that forceful chasing nature. Um, when in reality, like you don't like that's not your highest frequency. And
Yeah.
it's just, and I completely agree. I think that living your life, and I agree, money is like the best thing ever. And I always notice money comes easier and quicker to me. Funny when like I'm not doing business things.
Yeah.
When I'm like, when I'm not doing
When
business
you're in the
things, when I'm like,
jacuzzi, right?
yeah, when I'm just like detached completely and, not making that the one thing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I truly believe everything compounds for you too. Everything you put out, everything compounds. But yeah, I always say, the multiple businesses I have, people are like, is it overwhelming? Is it too much? And I'm like, no, it's amazing because I love them. They're my passions. I love doing them. And when you love it, it doesn't feel overwhelming. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's difficult, but it's I look at it less like that and more of a challenge. And a challenge is fun to me. It's exciting to me. It's finding kind of the joy in that. And, I tell people, you can have one business, you can have multiple businesses, but if you hate what you're doing, it's going to be really hard to sustain at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
I think, yeah, you're never gonna achieve success in whatever term that looks to you if you don't
Yeah,
love what you're doing, because
exactly.
you're not gonna do it for very long. Let's be, honest about it. That's why most businesses fail within what
Yeah.
is the stats now, like 18 months. I think it's like not very long. It's not long at
Wow.
all. And because most people who start, they kind of, I think a lot of people who start as an entrepreneur have the kind of what's the word? They kind of have the rose tinted glasses on, right? And they're like, oh, I can just, I see all these influencers just doing nothing, just living their best life and just reaping
Yeah.
in all the money. I'm just going to do that. And it's like, that the reality is most of those people aren't showing you behind the scenes. They're not showing
Wow.
you like their
Yeah.
bad days. They're not showing you like the teams that they've got or, all of the things that they have in place. They're just showing you like snippets that aren't reality. And I
Yeah.
think for people like us, it's about empowering our clients or our listeners or whoever it is to know that whatever they desire is possible. It
Yeah.
takes work, but
Mhm.
if you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like life. It just feels like you're just like, we're doing a podcast now, it's 7:45. Most people would say, why are you working at well, it's not your 7:45, but for me, most people would be like, why are you working? It's 7:45 at night. And I'm like, but this doesn't feel like work. Like
No, yeah.
this is just fun.
It's so fun. I know. I'm working an event this Saturday for my scrunchie business, which is one of my favorite things to do. I do like multiple events a month because I get to
Yeah,
meet people, I get to network, and it's fun, and I don't feel
you do that
lonely
with the
when I do it.
crystals. Yeah,
Um, and people like at the beginning were like, why would you work weekends? Like you could just do your coaching business and make money and not have to do that. And I was like, but that's the point. I don't want to be in my office at home 24/7 working on my coaching business when I could go to an entrepreneur event, work, learn, meet people, and connect. Like, why wouldn't I want to do that? Right. I
yeah,
think it's like that's not work to me. It's like fun. It's exciting. It's fun to me at the end of the day. And I
exactly.
feel like people have to see like the different perspectives of like maybe you hate what you're doing but like we love what we're doing, and I think it makes people kind of think twice of like, okay, am I actually like excited about my business? Am I having fun, or am I just like making this a chore for myself?
Yeah. And I think, yeah, we're not talking about like the forcing. We're not talking about, when you feel like you've got to make a reel because you've committed to making that reel. Like
Yeah.
we're just talking about opportunities that come
Yeah.
up and we're just like lit up by them and we're just like, yeah, God,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to do it. I don't even care when it is, I don't care where I've got to go. I just like, yes, I'm a full body yes, it's, and I think that's like where the magic is. And if people can just realize that that can be the reality, of being an entrepreneur. You know, it doesn't have to be hustle, grind, burnout, you know, the kind of rat race. It doesn't have to be that, but you have to, I think you have to choose one, something that you love.
Mm-hmm.
You have to allow yourself to have fun whilst
Yes.
you're doing it. It's not that serious. Like, it's not that serious.
It's not.
And
No, it's really not.
three, have I got number three? Just know that everything is possible. Like,
Yeah.
everything that you desire is possible, or you wouldn't even be able to think of it in the first place. You know, it's just
Yeah.
allowing yourself to believe that you can become that person who is able to live that life that you desire. And I think the last thing I would like to say is, when you've, or if you've got multiple businesses, I think a lot of people can fall into that trap. That I love that you touched on this, is that people might think, well, you've got one business that is like making good money. Why would you even want to do something else? Maybe you're not successful. Maybe you're not as good as you say you are. And I think a lot of people can have that, again, that fear of outside perception, right? That fear of, oh, but other people might think that this. And it's like, in reality, none of that matters, because anyone's perception is just a reflection of themselves anyway. But also, it's kind of the opposite. It's not about, I've got this much money in this business, so I don't need to do anything else. It's like, great, this business is like doing its thing. I can step back. I can put a team in place if I want to. I can step back. I can then put my creativity into wherever it's being called to next. Whilst I've got this revenue coming in, whilst I'm still making a great impact in the world with this business, I'm now freed up energetically to build something else and to be of even more service and to attract more money into my life as well.
Yep, I completely agree. Yeah, and I always, that's really what I love to do, and I love to say. I think it's just, you know, we do it because we're passionate about it and we love it. And like, why not? And who doesn't want to have another income stream, in my opinion? Like, you know, it's like one of those things that I was like, hey, you know, I need to, today I was like, hey, I'm gonna put some money in our, like, we have a travel savings. And I was like, hey, I can pull it from my e-commerce account and I don't have to pull it from my business account. Like, you know, it's like little things like that that can make a difference. Or like, hey, like, I want to pay for this hotel room. Like, I don't have to use my personal, I can use my e-commerce. Like, it's one of those things. And
Which
it's like,
business shall I use?
yeah, which one? Like, I think that's like a great thing about it. But, and I agree. I think it's just, we don't do it for the money. It's more of the passion. And, you know, back to what you said about, you know, the perspectives and trying it and starting it. I always lead with, what is the worst that can happen? We fail and have to start another business. Like, it's like, I always lead like, what when I'm scared. I remember when I started Soulful Scrunchies, I was like, what if, you know, one day it just, I don't want to do it anymore. Or like one day I can't sustain it. And I'm like, okay, like, what is the worst that can happen? You start a new business, you shut it down, you have to do X, Y, and Z, you take a break. Like, I think we think that the worst thing will ever happen if we try something new or implement it. But if you think about the worst thing that'll happen, it's not actually bad at all.
It's so
At the
true.
end of the day.
It's so true. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've self-sabotaged in my like business life, like over and over and over and over again. And it's fine, because I know, you know, my human designers are meant to do that so that I can teach others what not to do. But it's like, it goes back to that fear. And it's like, our fear can be so encompassing that, and you know, we can understand why, because it's a primal emotion. So, you know, it's literally like our body is like, okay, we're going to get killed by like a saber-toothed tiger. And it's like, in reality, you're just weighing up whether you want to pivot. You know, you're just weighing up whether you want to start another business, whether you want to, you know, diversify or whatever. And it's like, it's not that serious. Like you said, what's the worst case? Like, what's the worst case? It doesn't do what you wanted it to do. You learn a lesson, you do something else. You know, I always think the only failure is to not try, because if you don't try, then you're failing yourself. You're not failing anything else, because you're just denying yourself as ever really realizing your fullest potential, right? And that's That's the only thing you're ever going to regret, in my opinion, on your deathbed. You're going to look back and you're going to regret the things you didn't do, not the things you did do. So why not try? Why not allow yourself to fail? Because who cares? Like, who cares?
I agree. Yeah, I'm all for just trying and testing, and whatever happens, happens. As long as I trust myself, that's the most important.
Yeah, love it. Oh, this is such a great chat. Do you have any last comments or any last nuggets of advice you would like to give our listeners before we go?
Yeah, I usually will say that, and I in this most of my podcast episodes with guests with this is, you'll find more clarity when you let your ideas come to life. When the more you bottle up your ideas or the things you want to do, the more chaotic you may feel, the more overwhelmed you may feel. But the ideas that you have, the projects you want to do, the businesses you want to start, whatever, that post you want to post, whatever it is, you'll find more clarity when you actually do it. And when you actually just put one foot in front of the other and try, it's going to feel overwhelming and chaotic when you just let them bottle up. So that's my biggest piece of advice.
I love that. And I am a firm advocate. Like, every time I have an idea, which is like constantly, I have a little app on my phone and I like constantly like, okay, get this one out, because otherwise it just plays round and round, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a generator though too, right?
Yeah.
So they come quick. I'm a manifesting generator, so I usually have to sit on my ideas for a little bit.
Yeah, well, I have to stop myself from acting.
Yeah.
Like, slow down, Claire, slow down.
I love it.
Oh, this was such an amazing session. Thank you so much for joining us. And where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at madison.tinder. That is where you can find me. That's where I'm most active and hanging out right now. There'll be some new things coming in the future, but you can get updated through my Instagram.
Amazing. And we'll put all that in the show notes below. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.